Alright, guys. It's time to finally end the journey of a lifetime with the final chapter, chapter 26. A promise made, a promise kept. I know there are 2 extra chapters after this, which are the epilogues, but I figure I'll do this and I'll have a read of the epilogues after this whole series is done. So, without further ado, let's read for the last time. The walk back to Farthingland was fairly quiet. Perry had flown off ahead to tell everyone the good news. Plucky and Scarlet were in front, talking affectionately between each other. Fox and Whisper and Rebel 2 could only watch them with smiles on their faces, although they too conversed at times. To their surprise, there was quite a welcome party when they all got back to the hollow of the wood where Fox and Vixen's Earth was. All the Farthing Wood animals were there, sitting or standing around to celebrate Plucky and Dash's return and to welcome their new friends, Bolt, Woody and Jester, Perry and Scarlet, and now Rebel too. So it looks like we're going to be calling it Plucky's 8 now with Rebel. Rebel deserves it because he's awesome. They were already listening quite intently to Dash, as she had already began telling the story of her and Plucky's great adventure, as well as their new companions. She abruptly stopped speaking when she saw Plucky, Scarlet, Rebel, Fox, and Whisper enter the hollow, and she wasted no time in running over to Plucky to hug him. She came over so fast it actually winded him, forcing him to sit down. "One day, Dash, you're gonna run into me so fast you'll knock me over," Plucky joked, making many of the animals laugh. "Oh, shut it and hug me back!" Dash replied orderly. Plucky, of course, obliged, and placed a paw over her back and nuzzled her head lightly. Dash was jubilant, knowing she hadn't lost her best friend. She held him tightly, ruffling some of his fur, and she managed to stifle her tears of joy. Whisper then came up to Plucky at long last to get a chance to speak to him, and Dash finally let go. Whisper then licked the uninjured side of his face. "Oh, Plucky! I'm so glad you're back and you're safe!" Whisper said as she nuzzled him motherly. "I made a promise, didn't I?" Plucky whispered warmly. "Yes, you did. And kept it," Whisper smiled. "You've been away so long, though." "I know. I'm sorry," Plucky stated calmly. "It wasn't exactly by choice, though, I will admit." "What happened to your face? And your ear?" Whisper pried, noticing several of Plucky's shotgun scars in amongst his more recent injuries, now actually getting a closer look at him. "Well, I was just in a fight, but, Plucky briefly looked over at Scarlet and Dash, both of whom shook their heads flippantly with an anxious expression. "Probably best you don't know, Mum." Whisper narrowed her eyes. She knew well enough when Plucky was hiding something, but she was too overjoyed that he was home now. "All right, then," she expressed cheerfully and lightly licked his face again. "Come on, Mum. Not right in front of everyone." Plucky moaned, though he knew his mother was just pleased to see him, and he too was pleased to see her. "Okay, I'll stop," Whisper smiled as she backed off slightly. Soon enough, the rest of the animals came up to greet Plucky. "Goodness me, Plucky! It looks like you've been through hell, matey!" Toad exclaimed, having hopped over. "Where were you guys the entire time? Oh, I missed you so much!" "I'd come out the other side, thankfully," Plucky replied. "All's well that ends well, I assume?" Owl called from an overhanging tree branch, hollow next to her. "Couldn't have put it better ourselves, Owl," Dash responded heartily. "If everyone doesn't mind, though," Plucky soon announced loudly. "Not that I don't appreciate the welcome party, but personally I've had quite a long and tiring and rather bloody day," he said a bit sardonically, after examining the state he was in. "Can you give me a day or two to rest before we share the story of our journey?" "I think that's more than reasonable," Charmer stated calmly. Clearly she'd become accustomed to her leadership role. Dash has already begun telling us already, Friendly said cheerily. How far you got? Plucky looked to Dash. About to reach the town, Dash stated. Which town? The first one. Just after yours and Scarlet's fight, Dash explained. I remember that, Scarlet murmured slightly irritably. That's barely up to the beginning. Still got plenty to tell them. Plucky laughed. I think, though, maybe some of the story won't be suitable for younger ears. He, of course, was referring to his younger cousins, who were all there too of their parents. There were Ranger and Charmer's cubs, Rusty, Romer, Sapphire and Grace, and Friendly and Russet's cubs, Pace, Violet, and Faith. Aww. Plucky, we're like a year old now. Pace made a small protest to his comment. And we want to hear your adventure too. Your adventure too, Romer added on. I was going to say that you lot have grown a lot since I last saw you. Plucky smiled. The last time he had seen his fellow cousins, they were still only half the size of their parents and himself. Now, though, they had grown to their full adult size. Well, you've been gone half a year, Rusty exclaimed heartily. Yes, well, I think we could all do with a bit of relaxing. Plucky turned to Scarlet and his other traveling companions. Rest for the weary travellers, I think, Fox announced loudly. Come on, everyone. Let Plucky and Dash, and of course our new friends, get some rest. He finished with a warm smile towards Plucky. Thank you, Grandfather, Plucky smiled. See you all tomorrow, then. Plucky turned to Scarlet and smiled affectionately to the other. Shall we head home, then? Plucky whispered to her. I'd like that, Scarlet whispered back lovingly. The couple departed the hollow together, heading towards Plucky's earth. The rest of the Farthing Wood animals began to disperse to their own homes, as now the sun was setting across the sky, casting its usual bright orange radiance and assimilating the overhead expanse of cerulean blue. Even though he only had his one remaining eye to see out of, Rebel had been trying to remember faces and names of what he was now to call his new kin. It was quite a new experience for him. Having only lived around other foxes his whole life, now there were all kinds of animals. Some animals he would have considered as prey, though his brief conversation with Fox and Whisper had introduced him to the oath of Farthing Wood. As he looked around taking it all in, he felt a bit out of place, which didn't help the best that he didn't look exactly his best. Even so, he noticed that amongst all the animals, amongst a group of foxes, there was one charming young blue vixen who was looking everywhere but at him in a confused sort of way, and at times he caught her staring only at him. He smiled at her one time, and she smiled back. Ooh, is Rebel getting a love interest? That'd be cool. In amongst the rabble of all kinds of animals, Woody and Jester had been going around introducing themselves, already making a mischievous reputation. Unsurprisingly, they got along with the Weasel family quite well. Suddenly, though, they came across a couple of female gray squirrels, and also suddenly went a little nervous. Hi, Woody said to them, though kept his nerves in check. Hi, the one female squirrel said shyly. Hey, seeing as you're both new around here, me and my sister were wondering if we could show you around the tree canopy. Yeah, I think that'll be fine, Jester said slowly as Woody nodded in agreement. Great, well, follow us then, the other female squirrel exclaimed joyfully. Both then made for the closest tree and gestured for Woody and Jester to follow. Woody and Jester both watched the two female squirrels scurry up the tree slightly befuddled. They then shared a look with a sideways smile, before they did a fist bump. They had no idea it would be that easy, and they followed the female squirrels up the tree and were soon up to mischief again. Squirrel bro fist, everybody! Squirrel bro fist! Dash, Bolt, and Perry laughed heartily as they watched the squirrels disappear through the canopy. Perry soon let out quite a long yawn, and after, prematurely stopped Dash or Bolt, making a joke about it. "Not a word," the Falcon joked. "Wasn't going to say anything," Bolt sniggered. "Yes, well, I think I'm going to find a nice secluded high tree branch to sleep on," Perry yawned again. "It's been a long day." "Yes, quite," Dash smiled. "Well, good night," Perry said warmly. "Good night, Perry," Dash and Bolt said in unison. Perry then took off into the now darkening sky as the two hares watched. Dash and Bolt stayed in the hollow for a while, talking to the remaining animals. That hadn't left yet. Toad, Whistler, Owl and Hollow, Whisper, Charmer and Ranger, Friendly and Russet was still there, though their sons and daughters had already left. And of course Fox and Vixen, as they were all outside their Earth. Leveret too was there, and was overjoyed to see his daughter again, though did give Dash a brief telling off for not saying goodbye when she did leave. Of course, he was delighted too when Dash introduced Bolt as her mate, and they quickly became acquainted, and got along really well, much to Dash's relief. What about Dash's necklace? Is she still wearing it? I hope so. Yeah, she was still wearing it in the previous chapter, so I take it she's still wearing it now. The sun had now disappeared under the horizon, and the sky turned a deep navy blue. Dash and Bolt soon departed after realizing the darkening sky, going off to continue their lives together. Now, though, looking forward to some long-awaited peace and quiet and privacy. After traveling a short distance across Farthing Land, the hare couple reached the place Dash called home. "Wait, you actually live in a burrow?" Bolt wondered aloud to her. "It's not so much of a burrow, it's still above ground," Dash explained cheerily. "Touché," Bolt smiled. It was actually quite an ingenious place. It looked like a burrow, but it was in fact completely above ground, keeping with the fact that hares don't live underground. It was a small hollow of ground underneath a large thicket of assorted plants and shrubs with 2 entrances either side, only big enough for a hare, which provided the protection and the privacy. Dash led the way inside with Bolt following close behind. "Ah," Dash expressed as she lay on the ground. "Home sweet home. Our home." Bolt smiled warmly as he lay next to her. "And I wouldn't want to be anywhere else. Still hard to believe we are actually here now." "I know. It's been such a long journey," Dash said calmly. "But I don't regret any moment of it." "Even the moments where we almost died?" Bolt asked cynically. Dash looked at him reassuringly. "Even those moments. Because if I hadn't gone on this adventure, I would never have met you." She nuzzled him tenderly. Bolt hummed affectionately. "I can't argue with that," he smiled. Dash soon whispered, "Bolt, I love you." "I love you too, Dash." Then they nuzzled lovingly for a time and spent the night together intimately in each other's company, both of them now being exactly where they wanted, and where they felt they were supposed to be. In another part of White Deer Park, still inside Farthing Land, Plucky and Scarlet still strolled calmly towards the hollow where Plucky had made his Earth a long time ago. Though it was to no longer be Plucky's Earth. It was to be their Earth now. "Ah, right where I left it," Plucky expressed as they entered the hollow and could see the entrance to his Earth at the bank at the far side. "Your Earth isn't exactly going to move, though, is it?" Scarlet giggled. Good point," Plucky conceded. He then poked his head into his den, and his voice echoed from inside as he entered. "Still, I think I might need to do some maintenance." "Well, it hasn't been used in 6 months," Scarlet called down the hole before joining him inside. "Though it's as nice, warm, and dry as I remember," she said warmly before lying down. "I suppose I'm going to have to make it bigger soon, won't I?" Plucky whispered to her tenderly as he nuzzled her. "Probably," Scarlet replied lovingly. "It depends how big a litter, really." She then released a long yawn. "Dear me, how can I be so tired?" It's been a long day. For more you than me, Scarlet said anxiously, referring to the events of the day. Plucky nuzzled her tenderly to calm her. Don't worry, I'm fine, Plucky reassured, though Scarlet still looked a bit unconvinced. But it'll do us good to get some sleep. Yes, Scarlet wasn't going to argue with that. But I'm also hungry. So am I. Plucky realized he hadn't eaten all day, and apparently nor had his mate. How about we get a quick nap now and then go hunting later? Be better than going out tired, Scarlet chuckled. They both nestled next to each other in the warmth of their nice dry earth, and of course from each other. Scarlet fell asleep almost instantly, though Plucky struggled. Surprisingly enough, he didn't even feel tired, not even after almost dying today. More than once, too. It was that realization that stopped him from falling asleep. What would have happened if he had died today? He would have missed so much that he dared not to ponder the thoughts. He tried to stop thinking about it, and so decided to go outside for some refreshing, cool air. It was a clear night. Plucky could see in the sky above him thin streaks of dull gray clouds, and beyond them a bright silver crescent moon. It was quiet, and there was a cool breeze about. He ventured to the bank of earth adjacent to his den, and sat down quietly on the smooth grass. It was still slightly wet from today's earlier storm, but it's not like Plucky cared about that. He sat down and wrapped his tail around his paws and raised his head high as he gazed up into the night sky. He closed his eyes and took a few deep breaths. What was the point of wondering what if? He was home, he was with Scarlet, and they were both safe and sound. Plucky? A familiar voice called out calmly. Plucky was drawn out of his thoughts and answered, He then turned to look at his company to see that it was Fox. Oh, hi, Grandfather, Plucky said nervously as he looked at him. He suspected now that they were both alone, why he possibly was here. Can I expect the inevitable scolding to come now? No. I only just came to talk to you. Fox dismissed the suspicion and joined Plucky sitting on the bank. So, you're not mad? Plucky inquired. Oh, he is mad, all right. Mad that you just left after you'd had an argument. But more importantly, he was worried about you. He was hoping you were safe. On the contrary, Fox began in a bitter tone. When I found out that you had left all those months ago and abandoned being leader, I was the absolute definition of furious. Especially that you had made Charmer, Friendly, and Ranger lie to me. Oh. But that was a long time ago. Fox's tone picked up. And you should thank these three, too. They're the ones who persuaded me to be more lenient. How so? Plucky asked, with a hint of relief in his voice. Well, you're definitely not a young cub anymore. And you must understand, I was just thinking of your safety more than anything. But I should have known better to have acted so commandingly, especially towards such a strong-willed fox like you. Fox paused. Plucky, if anything had happened to you, I'd have never forgiven myself. Still never forgiven myself for what happened to your father. He sighed, but then smiled feebly. You are so much like him. I know, Plucky feebly smiled back. Listen, I'm sorry. Whatever for? I'm sorry for being so reckless, and impulsive, and arrogant, and... Plucky said remorsefully. Never mind about that now, Plucky. Fox interrupted as he could see Plucky meant every word. I'm just glad you're home and safe. Just about, Plucky said almost cynically. But about being leader... He paused and continued nervously. I doubt you're going to trust me with... I've already spoken to Charmer. Fox interrupted again. and she's willing to hand leadership back to you, so long as you think you're ready. I think I am. Now. Plucky smiled, and then asked inquisitively, How did Charmer get on anyway? Oh, perfectly. Then again, it's been fairly uneventful here. Even the winter was quite mild. Pfft, not where we were, Plucky joked. Really? Fox said curiously. You must have gone a long way away. Yes, but not by choice, Plucky explained. Same way my physical state isn't really my choice either, he said after looking over himself. All of his injuries had stopped bleeding now and had begun to scab over, but his more noticeable scars hadn't escaped his grandfather's notice. I was meaning to ask, how did you get those scars? Fox pried. Plucky was reluctant to say anything. Wrong end of a gun? Fox assumed with one raised eyebrow. Yeah, Plucky muttered reluctantly. But don't worry, because I was kind of okay, and I did have help. He then thought for a moment about the fox couple that had helped him and his companions on the moors all those months ago. That reminds me, I actually met your, younger brother. And his mate, Buck and Heather. The story didn't forget about them, though sadly it seems to have forgotten about Fleet, which is a shame. Huh? Fox expressed a little befuddled. I haven't thought about him in years. I imagine he doesn't go around calling himself Fox 2 anymore, Fox said cheerily. Our mother was very unimaginative with names. No, Plucky chuckled. His name is Buck. He has a mate and 2 litters of cubs. He asked me to say hi to you. Well, how about that? It's glad to hear he's doing so well. Fox smiled, and then thought for a moment. He didn't say much about me, did he? Nothing you need to worry about, Plucky said with a sly smile. He was silent for a moment. Of course, mentioning cubs made him think about his own soon-to-be-born, and he thought of telling his grandfather there and then. Actually, speaking of cubs, never mind. He changed his mind. Plucky, you can tell me, Fox coaxed in a grandfatherly way. Well, I'll put it like this. You and grandmother are going to be great-grandparents, Plucky said almost awkwardly. Fox jolted his head to look at him, eyes widened. What? Really? Yep, Plucky said proudly with a sideways smile. Ha! You son of a gun, Fox cheered. That's the same thing as said to Paul. Yes, well, Plucky smiled openly. As you can imagine, me and Scarlet have to prepare. Yes, of course, Fox compromised. After all, he knew full well of the commitment it meant. Probably outstaying my welcome a bit anyway. Not at all. I'm glad we had a chance for a nice chat, Plucky said happily. As I am. And I'm looking forward to hearing the story of your adventure, Fox replied as he got up to leave. I'm proud of you, Plucky. And so would your father. You're the bravest fox I've ever met. I know, Plucky said warmly. And thank you. Good night. Good night, Plucky. Fox soon disappeared through the shrubs, leaving Plucky to himself. Fox was even more overjoyed now. Great-grandfatherhood. He never thought he'd live to see the day. He was soon back at his own earth, the one he still shared with his own beloved mate, Vixen. As he entered calmly, she lay there peacefully, waiting for him. Where did you get off to? Vixen asked warmly as she lifted her head from her paws. I went to speak to Plucky for a moment, Fox replied, lying next to her. Oh, Fox, you didn't shout at him, did you? No, of course not. We just had a nice quick conversation. How is he? She asked sincerely. He's changed, Vixen. He's definitely not naive anymore, Fox said. In fact, I'd say he's become humble. He's a grown fox now. He chuckled lightly. But he's still as plucky as ever. Kind of makes me feel old, seeing how quick our oldest grandson has grown up, Vixen said with almost a hint of sadness. Now I'm speculating if I should tell you the news he told me, Fox said wonderingly. News? What news? Well, apparently, you and I are soon to be great-grandparents. That's fantastic news! But goodness me, now I do feel old. Vixen laughed heartily. Fox chuckled. Oh, don't be silly, Vixen, and smiled. You still look as sprightly and beautiful as the day we met. Oh, Fox, Vixen said tenderly. Such a gooey romantic you are, she joked. Oh, shush, Fox joked back. They didn't need to exchange the words. They knew as they nuzzled the other intimately that their love for each other was just as strong as it was the day they first laid eyes on each other. That day so long ago during the long journey to White Deer Park from Farthing Wood. And soon Fox and Vixen were asleep in each other's company and loving embrace. Back at the earth he now shared with his mate, Plucky had returned inside the warm, dry interior. The moss bedding was cushiony under his aching paws. The most comfortable thing he placed them on top of in a long time. He went to lie down next to Scarlet, who looked asleep, but soon revealed she too was awake when she turned her head to look at him affectionately. Thought you were asleep, Plucky joked. And I thought you were next to me. Where did you go? Scarlet asked wonderingly. Just outside. I spoke to my grandfather too. So, did he tell you off? No, we just had a nice chat, Plucky summarized. And he and my aunt actually handed leadership back to me. Or at least proposed it, I think. I told you, didn't I? Scarlet boasted. I hope this doesn't mean you're going to be an absent father now, she joked. No, of course not. Plucky nuzzled her. I hope you don't mind, though. I did tell him about our cubs. Well, it's not like we can keep it secret, not for much longer anyway. Scarlet smiled. Her belly had certainly gained a bit of girth that soon would be more noticeable. Suddenly, though, her stomach was what growled at her. Well, is that your stomach? Plucky asked humorously. Yeah, she said a little embarrassed. Shall we go hunting, then? Plucky said cheerily as he rose to his paws. Sure, Scarlet replied as she got up too. Are you sure you're okay to go, though? I just don't want you to strain yourself. For the last time, Plucky chuckled softly. Don't worry about me. You know for a fact I've been through worse. All right, then, Scarlet conceded. Where do we go, though? I'm sure you can't hunt in Farthing Land, can you? No, but follow me. I know the best spots. Plucky led her out of the earth. It was still clear and cool outside, the entire land bathed in the dim silver shine of the crescent moon. Scarlet followed Plucky eagerly through the wood. It was weird that she could roam around without caution, without fear. There was nothing she needed to fear now. This nature reserve, White Deer Park, was indeed a paradise. They traveled for a short time, but covered ground quickly, until Plucky stopped in a small clearing of the wood. Do you remember this clearing? Plucky asked warmly. Scarlet looked around trying to remember, though Plucky soon reminded her. It's where I saw you for the first time, he smiled. Plucky wandered to the center of the clearing. You were standing here going like this. He comically did an impression of her panting, which Scarlet tilted her head in slight irritation, though she knew he was joking. Plucky then came over to her and pointed her to a direction towards the tree line. And I saw you from behind those bushes there. Why didn't you come out then? She asked. Plucky began. Well, I was a little nervous, and you had run off before I could. You were nervous? Scarlet giggled. I can get nervous. I just don't show it. Plucky said proudly. Then he changed his tone down to an affectionate one. Plus, I think I was intimidated by how beautiful you were. And Plucky. Scarlet nuzzled him passionately. Come on, let's go hunting. Plucky smiled warmly. Plucky turned to begin their hunt together, but Scarlet stayed still on the spot, as if rooted to the ground. She looked up and took a deep breath, and then looked down, in deep reflection. Reflection in how much her life had changed now. How much being with Plucky had changed her life. What is it? Plucky asked, noticing Scarlet's motionlessness. I just realized, she began calmly. For the first time in my life, I'm not running from something. I don't have to fear anything. I'm finally free. She looked up at Plucky, her eyes filled with love and admiration. You saved my life, Plucky. But not only saved my life, you saved my soul. She then turned away and continued to speak. It almost doesn't feel real. Like I'm in a dream. Ow! Plucky had playfully bit her left ear. Why'd you do that? Proof, Plucky smiled. You're not in a dream, Scarlet. I'm very real, and so is all of this, he said warmly. Remember, I made a promise. I would protect you and keep you safe from anything and everything. Scarlet smiled lovingly. And you kept it. Oh, Plucky, you've done so much for me, she said tenderly as she nuzzled him. There's no way I can repay you for what you've done for me. Scarlet, you've already repaid me enough. You're carrying our cubs. Plucky whispered to her lovingly. That's more than I could have ever asked of you. Scarlet smiled widely. Well, if anyone told me 6 months ago that I'd be a mother next spring, I wouldn't have believed it. You know, I don't think I would have believed it either if someone said I'd be a father, Plucky chuckled. Times really do change, Scarlet said, continuing to smile. For the better, Plucky said warmly, as they both looked intently into the other's loving amber eyes, staring into their very souls. I love you, Plucky. I love you too, Scarlet. They nuzzled each other intimately again. Both ruffled the fur on their muzzles, cheeks, and heads, content with the touch and scent from the other, their love emanating from the very core of their hearts. They could have been there for a while, cuddling in the clearing of the wood. The same clearing of the wood where their adventure together had begun a long time ago. So, end of an era? Scarlet whispered. Now that we're here? No. Plucky smiled as he turned away, gesturing for them to start their hunt. Start of a better one. Plucky then ran on, Scarlet quickly catching up. In the cover of the night's darkness, yet under the silver radiance of the moon, the plucky, bold fox and the scarlet vixen, Jinx no more, ran on through the night on their hunt together. Their strides and leaps in unison as they roamed free and unopposed through the woodland. She couldn't be happier. He couldn't be happier. Both now free to live their lives and raise their family in peace and security, in the confines of the safe haven nature reserve of White Deer Park, in the true spirit of Farthing Wood. The end. Guys, And 14Sleepyhead09, thank you so much for reading this along with me. And thank you, of course, 14Sleepyhead09, for creating this story. You deserve so much attention, and I read this story all the way through and released them on the YouTube hoping that I could help you to be recognized more. Get some more people to read your story. Don't worry, I've mentioned your name in the comments. I've mentioned your name in the description of every one of these videos. So, yeah. Thank you guys so much for reading. I'm aware that there's a sequel. I don't know if I'll start that, because, I may have mentioned this on Facebook, but, I will, you'll have already read it on Facebook, so you might or might not know. But if I do come back to Let's Reads, I might check the sequel out. So thank you again, everyone, for watching and for reading this amazing story with me. And thank you, 14Sleepyhead09, you absolute legend, for writing this. Until next time, I'm the Masked Ranger, saying, keep moving forward, remember the oath, and thank your lucky stars. You got to read this story along with me. Goodbye, and good luck.